I was kind of brought up in it through my old man, but I've always been involved in the race paddock. I always was going to be, because my uncles and stuff raced, and but I was, like I said, I was brought into it, as Callum was born into it.
Well, the mother was pregnant, and I think, was he passengering right? Or
yeah.
Passengering, I can't remember who the driver was.
It was Kenny Howells he was passenger.
And the mother fell into labour. And did he do the race or not?
Yeah.
Oh, he did the race. I was born when he was racing, so I was born on TT week. So I am known as the TT baby. So that's pretty much how we got brought into the race. And then obviously the old man went into driving. I think his first TT was 2002. Well,
he started driving at the TT with Darren Hope as a passenger. On an Irison. Then they changed chassis to a Dave Molyneux DMR chassis, and then it was 2007 that he got his first LCR, which was the original LCR. That was different. It was completely different to this, really. The back end, the suspension was all different. It'd been developed since then. But yeah, once he got the LCR, he never went back again. He went on to win 5 TTs.
And it crosses the line in first place. Nicky Crowe, Darren Hope.
British Championship, Southern 100, Scarborough's. He was quite good, like, I suppose he was quite good.
But we have done fast around Derby.
Yeah, he's not as fast as us around Derby.
And Cadwell Park.
So we're catching him up. There's only a couple of places. Which is obviously Scarborough, which he's got the lap record at Scarborough still. Still to this day, still got this lap record. Nobody's come that close to it yet. Southern 100, it was a good one. He was 2007 Southern 100. He had a bit of a hiccup at Ballawhetstone, and he rolled off coming down the start-finish straight, and it was like 99.997 mile an hour lap. And he was gutted about that, because he could have been the first person to do 100 mile an hour, but he rolled off all the way down just short shifted the bike down because he thought he'd messed it up, but he didn't. It was just one of them little mistakes that he'll regret. But no, he's got a good track record behind him.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what he could have done if he kept on going. If he didn't have the accident, it would have been interesting. But we would have been beating him by now, obviously. But other than that, no, that's his career. Basically, he had an accident in 2009, race B, broke down in race A, so he was leading, and then he broke down on, I can't remember, second lap I think it was. But yeah, and then he started making his own race teams. 2010 he had Simon Neary and 11, and then 2012
Tim Reeves and
Tim Reeves
Dip Sean.
And then he he stopped doing the racing team, and then we went up to his paddock one year. We had our sponsor over, Dave Usworth, and we went up to a paddock, and
he was sat watching the Supersport race, and it was 2014.
Gary Johnson.
I think it was Gary. Yeah, Gary Johnson was on the Triumph 675, and he won. And that was when the old man asked Dave Woodsworth, "Do you want to run another sidecar team again? And we'll try something different." But originally, he told Dave Woodsworth that he was going to put a Honda in it. But in his head, he was always going to he was wanting to try a Triumph. So that's what he did. He went up, spoke to Triumph themselves at Smith's, to the late great John Trigger, who sadly passed away. He was the engine builder, and he said, "Yeah, it should work. It's a torquier engine. It's a good engine. It seems to be strong enough." They obviously had their doubts about them at first, because the first design of engines they made were completely different to these. The cranks were a bit weak on them, so they used to whip the cranks and damage the shells, and they never used to run that long. But once they reconfigured it to like a Jap style engine, it was, because it's a triple, it always is going to have that weak spot with the crank. But if you keep on top of it, well, we did We did 3 laps at the TT course at a reasonable pace, and it never missed a beat. Dropped the oil out of it after the race, and it was spotless. You know, it gave us a lot of faith in it. It's just getting them right. It's took us from 2015 to now to get it, you know, right, really,
Well, somewhere
really crisp.
we want it, somewhere close.
But we're always finding different ways to try and make it faster and develop
As
it.
you can see, the suspension is off.
Waiting for our suspension to come back.
We're working alongside Richard from Maxton, working with him, just trying to see what we can do with the suspension, see what can be done with it.
Derby's a good test for the suspension.
Oh yeah.
It's you can do a race and you can't touch your shocks when you come back. It's red hot. It's like a motocross track out there, really. But no, we're just, whilst we're in lockdown and just constantly trying to fiddle
Getting
away with
bored.
it, make it a little bit better every day. One day she'll be a missile. She is already a missile, really, but when you ride it all the time, you want to go a little bit faster and you want it a little bit faster again. There's so many ways you can do it. But no, we started racing together, and well, it wasn't even racing. We went done some track days.
It shouldn't have been. It
Derby.
wasn't even planned. It was never
No,
really.
we never even spoke about racing sidecars together. It was just, you know, we always wanted to do it, but we were never going to do it together. It was always going to be, I go my way, he go his. But yeah, we started doing some track days on it because we did try it at TT 2015, but it was just teething problems after teething problems. And then the rider that was riding it just kind of fell out of love with it, because, well, I can see where he's coming from, because he just wanted to do the TT as we were trying to develop a machine for the TT. So it was sat in the unit with a cover over it, and I just said to the old man, I said, can we take that bike out Derby for a run and just go and have a play on it? And ever since that day, it was, yeah, we carried on going out, getting faster and faster and faster, and then we went to Anglesey in end of 2016, one of our first race meetings, and we had a big accident and nearly wrote it off.
She went to Birchall's for a bit of service.
Yeah, it went down to LCR in Mansfield there with Ben and Tom, and they straightened it all up, repaired it, and then we went up and put it together. And I'm sure we went and did a race meeting straight after that. Or, well, I did, because Callum went off to ride with Mike Jackson, who's another Manx rider over here. And I went off with Jason, my cousin Jason Crowe. Then I had Harry Payne. Me and Harry Payne teamed up for a season, and then we went our separate ways after that. But we did well. Me and Harry, you know, we went faster every time we went out. We were constantly, you know, like I said before, trying to make it better every time we went out. And then we decided that we were going to go back together on it, as in me and Callum were going to go back together on
We
the
went to
bike.
Brands Hatch. That's another thing. It wasn't even planned either. It was where you come to Brands Hatch.
Cadwell Park? No, we went to Dorrington Park.
Oh yeah.
And it was me and Harry who were supposed to be racing. And Callum wanted a signature, and he wasn't racing that weekend, so he came with us for the crack anyway. And we were on our way down to Dorrington Park. I think we were about an hour away. And Callum said to Harry, can I jump on for the day and get a signature, and then you jump on? And I was a bit, because I hadn't raced with him for a while, and obviously I'd got faster. And, you know, you start relying on your passengers. You get a trust with your passenger. And obviously I haven't raced with him at that pace before. Never missed a beat. We had one hiccup, me and Harry, at Brands Hatch, and it wasn't any of our faults. The motor just let go. We were still development stage then. And yeah, we went to Donington Park. Callum jumped on the first day. And we were doing good times, to be honest. You know, faultless. I thought, bloody hell, this, you know, it's mint. I wouldn't even know I had a different passenger on. And then we come down the start-finish straight, just kicked it into 6th gear, and then it just went whoof and just locked it up. Just like the motor just locked up. And the whole unit went sideways, going down the straight towards Redgate, and I was thinking, not again.
Okay,
This is 2 years after I'd last had him on. We crashed together, and then I just thought, you know what, I'll put him back on, and then we nearly crashed again together. But that wasn't our fault. That was a little bit of a hiccup.
Where did we go then? Did we go to Brands Hatch, didn't we? No, it wasn't. It was Cadwell Park, wasn't it?
Yeah, we went to the Cadwell
Oh,
Park.
Cadwell Park. You know, we did a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, we the
1:30.
fastest I did round Cadwell Park was with Tony Belsey. He was covering for Jason at Cadwell Park. That was my first time there, And we did a good time, to be fair. I was quite happy with it. And then we went with Callum, and I'll not name him, but we had a bit of a thing where I was told that I wouldn't go 2.5 seconds faster that weekend that we went, just because it's a hard thing to do. And on the last race we did, and we went just over 2.5 seconds faster than our personal best that we did last time we were there. So that was a good result. We were happy with that. Not many people have done that time on an F2 before. Well, you could argue that because people don't call it an F2. The real term for it is it's a Formula TT bike, because that's what the rules are. You can use a 675 at the TT. This is what this bike was made for. It wasn't made to be running around at FSRAs and British F2. It was just specifically built for the Ironman TT. That's why the headstock angle's different, the offset's different. Everything's just a little bit tweaked for the TT. The whole chassis is, the whole bike, the engines, the tune of it. It's specifically just a TT bike. And Derby. That's about it. Well, we didn't get much experience ourselves. We were lucky enough to have my old man to kind of set the bike up roughly for the TT, because we only did 1 lap practice, and that's all we only got. And he just said, I'll put my settings that I have in it and go and see what you can do. And we were a bit weary of it, because 1 lap and you're about to get tapped on the shoulder to go down and do your first race. It was like, set off 11. You have to do 3 laps to qualify. But we only did, like I said, 1. But because of the weather and stuff, they couldn't really say no, because I think we qualified 7th off that 1 lap we did.
If you go back to the second race, when we didn't get out on the track because we had an electrical issue, on the second night of practice when the weather was alright, we broke down at Snugborough. A chain link come out. Well, didn't I say to you, I said, if we finished that lap, we wouldn't have finished the race. Like, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have finished the first race, because the wiring issue would have come on, and God knows what would happen
it's
then.
It's just fate, isn't it, I suppose? Somebody was telling us not to go. We had a little, we were sat in Park Ferme, I suppose, where you're just about to go up onto Bray Hill, and just here on the wiring, but you can't see it when the fairing's on, and the lights on the dash were flashing. And I said to Dad, it's never done that before. And he goes, no, it'll be alright, just turn it on and off, see what it does. So I turned it on and off, and I started it back up again, because we were warming the oil up, getting ready to go. And then I said, where's that smoke coming from? He goes, it's probably a bit of WD-40 if the exhaust. I said, I don't think it is, it stinks. So I turned it off, and it wouldn't stop smoking, so we had to reach around trying to grab the battery connector to rip the battery out of it. The solder was rubbing through the wires, and it touched against each other and started burning out. If we were going down Bray Hill or something, about to hit the bottom of Bray Hill, and it just cut out, you don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't handle right unless the power's on. Good thing it did do that in Park Ferme, because it was going to do it. Yeah. But it's one of them things where you can't look into your wiring loom and look at it and check it. It's all wrapped in like a heat wrap, like a protective seal. So it's just one of them things that's out of your control. Yeah. All you can do is, like, it was near enough a brand new loom on the bike. But yeah, it's just one of them things out of your hands, isn't it?
It would have been interesting to see what we could have done with a full week of practice and the 2 races, To
be fair, we had Adam Christie. He was in Park Ferme. We had the 5-minute call, and he was still ripping that apart, trying to fix it. And my dad's flapping. He wants his bike out, and he wants us to go out and stuff. And I was standing there, and I must have said it about 4 or 5 times. I said, I'm not going out. I said, even if you get that bike fixed, I'm not going out now. I said, I'm not in the right frame of mind to go out and do it now. But he was that determined to fix it. He was that, and he wouldn't stop until the bike started going on to Bray Hill. I just said, just put my helmet down. I said, that's it. Just call it a day. Yeah. Somebody's telling us not to go. We went back, got changed, and went out on the business. That's all you can do.
We didn't even have a big down about it, really, did we? It was just...
No, you can't. There's no point in getting upset about something that's already happened, because you can't change it. All we did is went back, got changed, grabbed a couple of cans of beer, and went and watched the race. But at least we did watch the race. The old man was saying to me and him, dead steady.
First night of practice.
Yeah. Dead steady, nice and calm. Go and learn your way around. So anyway, we were cruising to about, I don't know, it was probably about Griever Castle or something. We were, we weren't pushing, like I wasn't trying. I was just riding, but we got to remember, I drive the roads every single day. You know, that's my job. I drive on the roads every single day, so I know where I'm going. And as a teenager, I was a lunatic as well. Like I'd be just pedal to the mat all the way around the place. So when we were coming around, I think it was coming past the Hawthorn. I just turned around and his head was buried. I thought, yeah, all right. So then we pushed it a bit harder, and then we got to Concordia. Turned around, he's still got his head buried. I thought, well, he's comfortable enough. You know, I'm comfortable enough. We'll open the taps a bit more now then. And then we got back, come in, because we had a bit of an oil breathing problem, and there was a bit of oil landed on my hands and stuff. So I was constantly like rolling my hand to try and get re-grip, because it was vibrations, was turning the throttle off, so the bike was slowing off. I was going whoop and pulling it back on again. So come back in, and I'm one of the people, I don't want people to tell me how fast they've gone. I'd rather them just say, what's wrong, this, that and the other, let's fix it and go back out. Because if somebody tells you how fast you got, you want to go out and go faster, but then you'll end up going slower because you're trying harder. But yeah, I seen them all walking over, and it was, well, my dad, he knows not to say anything because he doesn't like it either. And Dave was with, but one of the Haven Homes fellas, he was helping us out. You know, it wasn't his fault, he was chuffed to bits. And he shouts at 109, I'm like, God, no way. But yeah, that was it then. And as soon as we went back out, we only made it to Ramsey.
Just Sky Hill, wasn't it?
Yeah, just before Ramsey. That's when I looked at the times, when I was on the marshal's phone, when we were stood at the side of the track, and we went 1 second slower to Glen Helen, 1 second slower to Bluff, 2 seconds slower to Sulby. So that proved the point that when you try and go faster, you won't go faster. You've just got to settle in and
I found
ride your bike, I suppose.
I found it funny because, well, actually, when we first went out, I went round town riding, we went through Greba Castle. I was thinking, he's licking on here, isn't he? I was thinking, bloody hell. There's actually a video on Facebook. I was going through Greba Castle on the very first lap, and you just see how nailed he's got it. But like when he was saying about the oil spill, one of the bosses from Haven Homes was there, Billy. He probably come up to the paddock expecting just to watch and stuff like this, and we come in and a bit of oil, so the old man chucked the blue roll at him
And the brake cleaner.
And blue roll and brake cleaner at him, and he's standing there going, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? He says, wipe down them boys, he's getting a wash, he's getting them back out there. So he just made me laugh because, you know, he's probably gone up there just thinking, I'll go
We're
watch.
all stood there, and he's running around going, cleaning all the levers and the bike
the
off.
main sponsor.
What a better way to get stuck in? What would you rather do? Just sponsor one and stand at the side of the track and watch it and go, I sponsor that. Or get stuck in, involved in it. You know, he loves it. You know, I've took him out on it round Derby. He loves it. He's my spare passenger now. Well, Callum's my spare passenger now.
Billy's number one passenger
number one
now.
passenger and Callum's spare. But obviously Billy's busy, so I've got to use my spare.
Dave Lewis was a bit scared, unfortunately. That's his other boss.
He's getting it next time.
And then we went on the race. That was nerve-wracking. Bloody hell.
I knew we were doing all right when we caught Gary Bryan. That's when I knew, because I know Bryan doesn't hang about. You know, he's good to go. When I seen well, to be honest, I seen him. Where did I first see him? I think at the top of the mountain mile. I seen him going off the distance. And I thought I was going to catch him up here. And then we caught Conrad Harrison coming out of dip, but he let us past. You know, he I think it was Andy Winkle said like waved us past. People think that the bike just went poof past him, but it didn't. You know, Andy waved us past, pulled in and let us through, and then he pulled back out in front of us, behind us. That was it then. And then we kind of just settled in, like just stayed. Didn't try and push anymore, because I knew it was only that was my second lap around the circuit. It was then I just thought I'm going to just stick it steady, nice and bring it home. But yeah, it was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's painful as well. Like your body takes an absolute beating. It's when you get off it, you know, when you come back and then you stand out of the fair and that's when it's sore. It's like, oh my God, you know. And the next day, because you're holding your head, your neck all down here's dead tight and sore, and you don't want to do much. If somebody said to you, do you want to go to work the next day, it'd definitely be a no. I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, I remember on the Newcomers lap, I come back in and Tom Bircher goes, how'd you find that then? I said, oh yeah, it was brilliant. My bloody leg went numb because you're in position for so long, he goes, well, yeah, your body has to get used to that. And I said, yeah. So we only had one lap practice and 3 laps in the race. I mean, obviously my body didn't adapt to any beating like that ever before, and that was, my leg went numb. It was unreal. When I come back in, it felt like my leg went the other way when I stepped on it and put pressure on it. But that was it. But you've always got people there to help you.
What about the time you put your hand underneath it?
Yeah, that was a bit of a amateur move. I went with that handle there, and I come through Solby, and I put my hand back underneath to get tucked down, but my hand went too far and scraped underneath the bodywork and scraped the floor. I thought nothing of it. I thought it was just a thing. I was going to the mountain mile, and my hands were tucked in on the thing, and I seen all the blood on my hands, and I was thinking, what the hell have I done
So
here?
you had to take the gloves off
Oh yeah.
and dry the blood off? No, you didn't.
But yeah, then the scar's still there now, but that was a bit of an amateur move, that. You remember that? You probably remember that, don't you? Yeah. You were interviewing me, the blood was coming from your hand. It was all in the bodywork as well. So that was mine.
But we definitely learnt a lot that on the 4 laps we did. We learnt a lot. Like Ben always says, you learn something every lap, and he still says you learn something every lap. And the pace he's going, the amount of laps he's done, you know, I know you've got to carry on learning and learning and learning. It does benefit you living here because you know everywhere, but then it's completely different. You're on a 3-wheeled machine. You're not in an 18-ton wagon driving around or a hot hatch car, or you know you're on something with no suspension with 2 people on it with 3 wheels. You're wringing the neck out of it. You know, you're going as fast as it can go. You're not doing 30 coming over Blaff Bridge or through Blaff or Solby, or you know, that's strange to us. It's like where you'd expect the lollipop man to come out and stop in the middle of the road as you just go, you're just flying through. But it's an amazing feeling. It's once you've done it, you just want to go again and again.
After you get the 3 laps, it's just, when you cross that line and you've done 3 laps of Yard TT, it's just absolutely.
But you'd go again.
Oh.
You know, they said, right, restart, you go, right, okay. Let me change an engine and we'll go again.
I remember crossing the line, I must have broke his back. I was slamming it that hard with celebrations. There was no other feeling like it in the world just to cross that line.
It's where your bread and butter is, isn't it?
That's it. And then where did we go? Brands Hatch after it, didn't we? We went to Brands Hatch, and I walked back into Ryan. I said, so boring. This is so boring. I said, this is absolutely boring me, the racing on the circuits. I said, you come from the TT and then you come to Brands Hatch. It's just like...
For a few weeks after.
It was just like...
That was on the long bike though. So it was hard for me because they're completely different things, and I've only ever ridden a long bike like a handful of times, as I've ridden the F2 loads of times. Like, you couldn't count it. I could wake up in the morning, get on the bike and go and do racing and blah-de-blah, but the long bike is a completely different thing. To me, you know, people say you should learn to ride one of them before you ride one of these because they're more difficult to ride than these. This is like a go-kart. It's like if you're coming in a bit too fast, you can scrub it off, scrub a bit of speed and then carry on going, but you wouldn't want to scrub one of them off. You know, you wouldn't want to come into a corner and just chuck it in and scrub it off. You end up on your roof. But no, I've decided I like the F2s than the F1s. They're on about trying to do a lot more road racing around Ireland, and that new Isle of Wight circuit that they're on about now, they're going to try and get the sidecars there. So to be honest, I just stick to my road racing really on the outfits, and then if it doesn't happen with these, we're going to go buy a classic and do all the road racing around Europe and stuff on it. Circuits are good, but they're not the roads. Everybody has their own preferences, and yeah, I prefer the roads myself. Of what I've done, it just gives me more of a buzz than riding around the circuit. People say you only ride at 90% of your ability, but I say you do ride at 100% because you're concentrating so much more harder than you are on a short circuit. Because you know you can't make a mistake. You've got to make sure you don't make a mistake.
And you got the pandemic, which put a stop for it for 2 years. It's just, you couldn't make it up, could you?
If it cancels it again, we're going to go do a lap anyway.
Yeah, we're just going to tell
They'll
Howard.
have to catch us, won't they?
Yeah, just going to tell
Doors
Howard.
open, bike in, shut the doors.
I'm going to text Howard Quayle and just say, listen, we're going for a lap. I'll be too late by the time he gets there.
text him before we set off. We'll give you guys a shout though. You video it.
You get camera around each point of the circuit.
Big secret test or a secret race. But yeah, how boring is the Isle of Man with no TT? It's just nothing happening, is it?
What about our, what I call the baby TT? You know what that is, don't you?
The Southern.
Yeah.
Well, they're on about if there's enough people to do it. If they don't open the borders over here, they're going to try and run a day meeting or a 2-day meeting just for the locals. We spoke to George about it, and he asked us to have a count up of how many outfits we could get to do it, and every single outfit on the Isle of Man said we will do that. You know, so we counted 11 bikes, so that's I'd say that was enough to run a 2-day meeting. That's more than we've ever had over Derby since I've started racing. And then the solos, well, you know yourself, there's always a full grid of solos. So, and I think what it was they were on about running just 600s though, not the thousands. I think it was just a 600 class, 650s, 600s. I think the maximum one was Super Sport was the maximum class they were going to run, just because of what it was, because it wasn't going to be, well, if it turns out to be like that, it'll be a lot safer, a lot easier, you know. I enjoyed the 700, but it was tough at the same time because we only just got back from.
We actually just went in the wagon at TT and spoke to Christie's.
Yeah, well, yeah. When we decided that we were going to put one of them R6 engines in the chassis, but it's not a 2-minute job. I think it was a week after TT that the bike ended up going to them, and they started doing the job. New tanks, radiators, new wiring loom, new Motec for it. Everything got lashed on just for the 700, but when you build a new bike, you always have teething problems, and we were overheating all the time. The oil temperature was sky high, and the water temperature was sky high. So I'm constantly worrying about what my engine's going to do and what my bike's going to do, and trying to learn, because the whole thing was different. It all matters where your engine's sat to make the front end grip to the back end grip on a sidecar. So it was all new, never sat on it before, and then they sent out on a mass grid at the 700. So I struggled a bit at the 700 because of that, because I was trying to learn my bike and the circuit at the same time, and it was a completely different thing. It wasn't the same bike as I've ridden for the last few years. Yeah, we ended up having to pull out of the last race because the engine, well, the head gasket did go on the motor because it just kept overheating all the time, and it's like, do we waste any more money to go and do another 6 laps? And it's like, do we risk blowing an engine up for 6 laps? It's like, just pull out of it. But the TT is like a rally. It's like you get set off on your own, and it's your own race. You're not racing against him or her or whoever. You're racing against yourself and the clock, so all you're concentrating on is getting your time faster. You're not worried about who's in front of you and who's behind you. But the 700s, it's like a short circuit put onto a road, and it's, you know, mass start. When you go into that first corner, it's absolute chaos. It's like, you know, when you've never done a road meeting before, coming into a corner like that, it's scary. Whilst trying to look at your dash, whilst trying to check all your oils and temperatures and water temperatures and stuff and pressures. Yeah, it was definitely hard. But, you know, if and when the 700 goes again, we will be there again. You know, we're not just going to shy away from it. Just make sure the bike's right for it next time.
You guys did well, though.
Yeah,
And look who we got back there.
Yeah, that was the Sidecar Consolation race. That was Newcomers and people. I think it was something to do with that. I can't remember what it was, but still had a close enough race with my mate John Lauver. I've got a picture of it actually, where the race got stopped for I think somebody had an accident. The race got stopped, and there's a picture of us stood at the church, you know, Church Bends. But no, I like the Southern, but it was the wrong time for us to do the Southern.
It was just rushed. It was just.
We shouldn't have rushed into it like we did.
No.
You know, we got back off the boat. Like, I went away to pick the bike up, and I come back on the Sunday night, Monday morning boat. So I literally got off the boat, drove to the paddock, had to set up the awning, set up the flooring, do all the hospitality side of it, get the bike out, and then build my bike. Because it wasn't finished, it was nowhere near, you know, we had loads to do. We had all the little, like, the under trays to fit. Oh, it was and we were late for scrutineering because we were still putting it together. We pushed it up to scrutineering when it wasn't even running, brought it back, then carried on working on it. I think we were about 20 minutes before first practice, it was actually first started up. I was like, right, let's go and do practice. But yeah, I only did about, I think, 2 laps of practice, and it was overheating. So I come in, and then we tried something else, went back out, overheating. So if we had a good time to prepare it, then it would have been all right. But yeah, we were having all sorts of problems and mapping problems, and people sending us maps, and they were like miles out, and it's like, yeah, it was a nightmare of a week for us, I suppose. But no, I do honestly think that the Triumph engine now, we know that it's good. We've worked with it long enough. We've started building them ourselves now, and touch wood, our engines haven't blown up. You know, our engines have been faultless, bang on. You know, but the reason why we went to the Triumph is because it's a triple, so it creates more torque. So in the 600 class, it's good. You know, it'll give you a bit more punch, but then the 600's faster on the straight because it's got more RPM. It's a sidecar. It's got 3 wheels, 3 big wheels, and 2 people. It's carrying 2 people all the time. It's got 40 litres of fuel on it. It's not got 11 litres in it. It's kind of like common sense, really. You'd go for the engine that's got a similar horsepower but more torque to then pull you along a lot better.
But you can actually see the difference.
You can see you can see the difference in there. That's an R6 on the right there, and that's the Triumph on the left. The cranks are actually in line there, like that height of the crank is in the bang in the middle of that dot there, and the crank in this bang in the middle of there. But look at the height difference in the motors. Is that one's obviously skinnier because it's got the triple cylinder, so it's not got 4 in line, but that one's a lot shorter. To work on like tucking yourself out the wind and stuff, as you can see when it's in the bike, it sits up higher, so your head's up higher, your whole body's up higher, so it affects the handling of it, it affects the aerodynamics going down the straights in it, but then it also gives you a little bit more torque. So it's, you know, it's give and take all the time. Everybody has their own preferences to what engines they want to use, and well, that's ours, I suppose. You know, we've worked with it too long now to just change and go back. As like the Triumphs, you can still pick them up. Like that engine there, we paid $2,000 for. That engine there, we paid 900 quid for. It's, you know, I could buy 2 of them as the price of that one. Plus you've got 1 less cylinder, one less piston to replace. 2014, it was the first bike to ever have the Triumph put in, but then very closely followed behind, Roy Townsley put one in his, I don't know what, I can't remember, MR equipped chassis. He had the same engines, he got the same engines from the same fella, but they were slightly different sump designs and stuff, but I don't think he had as many problems as us with the sump on the first year. Roy Townsley still runs a Triumph, and the Irish fellas, there's an Irish pairing that on an Irison, they've got Triumph in now. They were at the TT 2019. We helped them out with a couple of bits and bobs where we could, but you know, as far as I'm aware, I'll help people that help me, and vice versa. But no, I'm pretty confident in my engines now, to be honest. I wasn't for a long time, because obviously we had a lot of... When I first started cycle racing, I started racing just blowing engines up. That's all I did, just race, do a couple laps, blow one up. It's part of development. When somebody put a Honda in for them for the first time, they were blowing up. When somebody put a Yamaha in for the first time, they blow up. Because it's a sidecar, it's not like a solo. It doesn't lean. On a solo, when it goes around a corner, the bike tips, so the gravity's pushing the oil flat all the time, so it doesn't slosh from side to side. It's always at the bottom of the sump when the bike's leaning. As a sidecar, the engine's sat like that, and it doesn't lean. So when you go around a corner, all the oil pushes to one side, and that's what causes them to blow up. So it's getting the sump right, getting the baffle plating right in the sump to make them not surge, to hold the oil all the time. It only takes for a little tiny gasp of air, and it'll let go. You know, they're very temperamental. They put up with some stress, but they are temperamental. It takes a tiny little mistake to cause them to go bang. But that's the same with every engine. You know, every engine will do it. When you're setting them up and developing them for something that they're not designed to do, you're going to have problems, aren't you?
It'd be nice to get it on the top step as a TT.
Wouldn't it be nice? It's the only bike, except for the ignition, except the Motec. The Motec's Australian, but then the chassis is built in the Isle of Man. It's about 70% an LCR. It was the last bike that Louis Christian built in Switzerland, and then we picked it up, brought it back, and then it got cut up. Well, the crossmember was replaced to make the crossmember shorter. But this is, I don't mind saying this because it's not like that now. Yeah. We shortened the crossmember to put a 10-inch chair wheel in, but it was too grippy, far too snappy. But yeah, we cut the chassis, rebuilt the front to get all the angles and the offset right without it looking like a plastered job. Built in the Isle of Man. It's got British tyres, British engines. What other bike do you want to win the TT than a fully British? Yeah, everything on the bike except for the Motec is British. Everything on it. There's not many sidecars that can say that.
And 2 Manx riders.
Yeah, British Manx riders, yeah. But all we can do is do our best, can't we? Do our best, but take our time. You learn to go fast very slowly.